Aikui, Olivia, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. Excuse me. And today we'll be talking about my July wrap-up. July felt like it flew by. It was gone in 2 blinks, I swear. We went camping, we got engaged. Thank you so much to those who congratulated and reached out. I am super excited, and because of that, I kind of felt like I wasn't as into reading this month, just because, you know, I just wanted to enjoy it. And of course, like right off the bat, I started having ideas and wanting to start planning a wedding, and now that it's not as new and fresh, like I'm still excited. I'm still hoping to plan something, but it's not as like immediate to me. It's not my sole focus anymore, so I'm getting back into reading. It's been a time. I also participated in Summerween, which is a week-long readathon hosted by Olivia Reads Latte and Gabby from Gabby Reads. And it's basically a readathon that's week-long that encourages folks to read spooky, horror, thriller-y books outside of Halloween time. So I enjoy it. They also have one for spring, and I believe they also have one for winter, but Summerween tends to fall on the time that I go camping, which I think is really fun, even though my partner doesn't necessarily like it. Oh, my fiance, sorry. Because I then bring horror books that I have a hard time falling asleep while camping anyway, so mostly because every little noise startles me. So he's not too keen on that idea, but I have enjoyed it. So yeah, I've only read 6 books for the month, which is perfectly fine. Please do not compare yourself to others. The only one you should be comparing yourself to is yourself. I am perfectly happy with the fact that I read 6 books, mostly because it was more than I expected it to be. And not all of them followed my TBR. So I will leave my Summerween TBR up above as well as down below if you want to go check that out. I did read about 3 of them, technically 4, but I didn't finish the 4th one until August, so you will see that in my August wrap up. But I will talk about the ones that I read for the month of July. I knew I was going to end up trying to spread out the Summerween TBR throughout all month of July, just because I don't like week-long readathons. I feel like they're too short. So, and I like to give myself time. I am not the fastest physical reader, so let's go ahead and get into my monthly wrap-up. So like I said, I read 6 books, which equates to 1,400 pages, 34.62 hours listened. Read 5 of these audibly and 1 physically. 3 of them were novels, 3 were novellas, 3 were adult, 3 are YA. And in terms of genre, there were 4 horror and 2 romance, which feels real weird. But yeah, that seems to be what I'm ping-ponging between right now, is just horror and romance, which is fine. And in terms of my rating breakdowns, I have 0 1 star, 1 2 star, 1 2.5 star, 1 3 star, 1 3.5 star, and 2 4 stars, which I feel like they may be adjusted just because, like, looking back at July, I don't think there was any particular book that I felt like was a favorite at all. None of them really particularly stand out to me, but we'll see. My average rating for the month of July was 3.17. So, and then I did have 2 DNFs as well, so I'll go ahead and talk about those. My first DNF was Funeral Girl by Emma K. Oland. This was a audiobook that I had, I think, purchased for sale through Libro and was interested in because it felt like it was perfect for Summerween. I had been interested in it in a while, but particularly the cover was really interesting to me. I really enjoyed it, but listening to it, I wasn't as excited. So this follows a young girl who works in her family's funeral home, and when she touches a dead body, their spirit comes to life essentially, and she tries to figure out what their last wishes are. And once she fulfills those last wishes, or like once she figures out what their last wishes are, she touches the body again and their spirit goes on to the next part, whatever that is. She's not entirely sure. She's not sure why she has these powers. No one else knows about these powers, but lately she's been feeling like she is afraid of death. She doesn't like the funeral business really. Her parents expect her and her brother to take over for them, and she's just not feeling it. So when a classmate ends up dying due to unforeseen circumstances, this really affects her, and she realizes that her family is going to be the one that his, like, her house, because she lives in the funeral home, is going to be where his body passes through, because they are the only funeral home in town. And this is basically where I don't know where it was supposed to go, because this is as far as I got in the story, and I didn't like the way it was going, because the girl made it all about her in terms of the death of her classmate. So she was criticizing other classmates who were posting on his social media saying that they were best friends, that, you know, they were closer friends than she knew them to be. And so even though she didn't know him either, but his death like affected her. So it's like she was getting mad at everybody, and like, which I get to an extent, but it was just overly dramatic in my opinion. And she had already had issues communicating with her family. Some of it made sense, but other parts I thought was just overly dramatic. I wasn't sure where it was going, and I wasn't interested in knowing where it was going after seeing like that she was making his death about her. So I just DNF'd it. The other DNF that I had was Really Good Actually by Monica Heasey. This one, we're following I think she's in her early 30s or late 20s. But basically, Maggie is getting divorced from her college boyfriend or husband. College boyfriend turned husband. And basically the marriage didn't last 2 years, so she feels like a failure. And she's kind of, the whole book is essentially her trying to figure out life after divorce. And despite Julia Whalen narrating it, so I did end up, I think I was able to get this through my library, through Libby. And Julia Whalen, I tend to enjoy her narration. This book, but she could not save this book for me. Let's see, I think I put like a reason why I DNF'd it in my DNF review. Nope, Julia Whalen is a great narrator, but I could not get through this book. It very much gave me Bridget Jones's Diary, with less funny antics and more weepy sitting alone on the floor drinking wine and being bitchy with a group of friends, which I would have possibly enjoyed at some point in my life, but this was not it. So yeah, that's essentially it. It was very much Bridget Jones's Diary, not the book, the movie with Renee Zellweger. I haven't seen that movie in years, so I don't think it would hold up the same as it did when I was younger, but it felt less funny antics, more trying to be funny and failing and just being weird. In all honesty, I wasn't for it, which really sucks, because I love this cover. I do have a physical copy of this book. It's over on my shelf. I'm getting rid of it. I'm not. No. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the books that I did read and finish for the month of July. The first one that I read was All These Bodies by Kendar Blake. This was one that was also available through my library, through Libby. And I've read Kendar Blake before. It was like the three sisters that had to fight for a crown, or for the throne, essentially, and they each had different powers. I read the first one and wasn't interested in the rest of the series. So this one, All These Bodies, we are following like a teenager who is an aspiring journalist, and there are murders happening around their town, but not in their town. Actually, they seem to think that like this murderer has skipped their state entirely, only for one night, for a family in this small town, so like everyone knew them, to die. And it was really weird circumstances, in terms of like 3 of the 4 family members ended up dying, and there was not a lick of blood anywhere except on the girl that they found at the crime scene. She was covered in blood, so she's taken into custody. This teenage boy ends up seeing her and making eye contact with her, and there's something out in the woods that scares the bejesus out of their dogs. There's other towns that are wanting to get custody of this girl because they believe that she is part of this murdering spree, particularly this DA in Nebraska who wants to take her back to Nebraska because that Nebraska has the death sentence. And this town doesn't want to do that, mostly because so they think that they could possibly get information from her, but she's not talking to anybody. She's not wanting to talk to anybody. In fact, the only person that she wants to talk with is the teenager who also happens to be the sheriff's son, who's an aspiring journalist. So he's the only one she will talk to. So he then has to figure out and kind of sleuth out the facts. However, the facts aren't as realistic as he would like them to be, and feels like she's hiding something. It was a really interesting book. This is narrated by Matt Godfrey, and I thought he did a really good job, particularly when it came to like the spooky voices, because there is something that is following, stalking this town essentially, and at one point our main character like hears the voice, and it's so creepy via audio, and oh my god, it was like that like made the book for me. Otherwise, I felt like this book could have been longer and could have had more details. As it was, like, it was kind of forgettable in terms of like I don't know, it just didn't hit me in any way. Like, it was interesting. So I think originally I gave this 4-star, but I think I'm gonna move it down to like a 3.53 star. It was fine. Next, I ended up reading Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge. This is also this was one that I listened to via audio through Libro, and this is narrated by Vicus Adams, who also does Lavender House. I enjoy Vicus's narration, and Dark Harvest was interesting. It's it's a novella. I'm trying to explain it without giving it away because it's a novella. And so basically once a year in this small town, these families end up kicking out boys and young men of a certain age. They give them weapons, and they lock their doors and don't let them back in all night, like starting at sunset, I believe. And it's basically every boy fends for himself. The businesses are guarded, and basically the boys are told to kill October Boy. So this was interesting. It was one of those stories of just like, who's the real monster here? And at first I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, because as the narration went on, like for the first quarter of the book, it was like, you would know because you're from here. Like, it kind of gave that impression of just like, but you are this person, or you are from this town, which was very odd to me. I didn't quite like it, but then as the story actually got going, I found myself really invested in it. It very much gave me like Halloween, or no, not Halloween, Trick or Treat vibes. That movie, I haven't seen that movie in like years as well, and it made me want to watch it. I have yet to watch it, and actually at one point during the book I thought that it was like kind of a weird spin-off from Trick or Treat, but actually Trick or Treat came out after this book did, so I thought that was interesting. I said that there wasn't any like standout book to me. I would say that this one probably stands out more. I do want a physical copy of it. I gave it, I think, a 3-star, but I think I'm going to bump that up to a 3.54 star. And I do want a physical copy of it. I actually saw that Jen from Jen Agaton has her copy up listed on Pango. So if it's still listed by a certain point, I'll probably snag it. Because yeah, I did ultimately enjoy it. I thought it was a really interesting book. And then next I read Conjuring the Witch by Jessica Leonard. This was narrated by Linda Jones. This one is following a couple who moved to a small town. The husband is wanting to farm the land like his grandfather did, and just kind of wants to blend into society. They join their local church, and the wife has a hard time committing to anything. So she tries to garden but can't. This is also another novella, so I'm trying to think of details that won't completely spoil it or give anything away. But the wife basically is having a hard time fitting into this society or this community after joining the local church. Their priest is constantly saying that there are witches in the woods. A lot of the other churchgoers believe that this is a metaphor. This wife believes otherwise, and when she's like kind of cast down upon, she ends up going to the woods and something ends up happening. So then she's blamed for being a witch, and her husband is stuck between trying to like remain like kind of in the background or helping his wife. So this was an interesting book. I was hesitant to go into it just because it does have to do with religion and the church, and those books, I haven't read very much of them just because the topic of religion and church just tends to rub me the wrong way. This one, though, was kind of a look on the church and its patriarchy, basically explaining things that I already kind of knew, so it was nothing new to me. And it was an interesting way to go about it. It was an okay book. I think I gave it 3 stars. I probably wouldn't. I like the cover. I just kind of wish it was spookier. It wasn't so much it's another one of just like, who's the real monster. But it was okay. I would not get a physical copy of this. Next, I ended up reading This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham. This is the only book that I read physically. And basically just read it the whole time we were out camping. And I actually had started it before we went camping, hoping to finish it before we did, but we were so busy packing up for camping that didn't happen. So this one is following a group of young women, girls. I believe I said this was young adult, but it's like bordering on new adult, because I believe they're out of high school now, or that's during the summer before their last year. I can't quite figure it out. But basically they are going to a music festival that's supposed to be the new up and coming Coachella, because it's in the Mojave Desert and it's like you're camping out, etc. These 4 girls are hollow people. These basically they're a type of zombie as a result from the Halloween, which was a virus that spread a couple years ago. And while they're at this music festival, everything's going well until one of their friends ends up going feral and killing a band member. They end up hiding it, and they are trying to figure out how she ended up going feral, and start to notice too that other people are starting to go missing. So they're trying to figure that out. This one was interesting in terms of its diversity. I did appreciate that. We have a trans side character and 2 BIPOC side characters, as well as the main character is trying to figure out her feelings for her best friend, the trans side character that also is like an online influencer. They've been best friends for years, and she's realizing that she's in love with her and is having a hard time reconciling that because she doesn't want to ruin the friendship that they have. Which I think is an interesting, like, very good to explore, but I feel like the diversity was a little shallow. We do get each of their backgrounds in terms of what happened during the Halloween and how they ended up surviving, essentially, but I feel like it could have gone deeper. I don't know, it just felt very surface level to me. I don't know how else to explain that. I also feel like I like zombie books, and I will be keeping this book because ultimately I gave it 3.5 star. I feel like I would have enjoyed it more had I been younger, because there's a lot of young adult tropes in here that I'm just like, or stereotypes, and I'm like, okay, like it's just the high school stereotypes, and I'm just like, oh, people are still doing that. Okay. I do enjoy zombie books, but I feel like I've been spoiled in the zombie books that I've read so far in terms of like Newsflash by Mira Grant or like The Girl with All the Gifts, because we get more information about the virus. We don't get all that much in here aside from like its effects on people. We don't know how it started, how it's affecting, like we kind of get how society has been affected since, which I also felt was a little unrealistic, just because after seeing what happened with the pandemic, and as like we've gone from like total shutdown to now we're just ignoring the fact that it's still a thing. I don't know if some of the things in here would have been organized as well as they would have been. So I don't know. It just makes me question. But ultimately, did enjoy this for the most part. I thought it was an interesting book. It was a fun read while I was out camping, because they were out kind of camping. They were cabin camping at a music festival where it was hot and I was hot. And yeah, it was a fun, interesting read. The next book was not part of the last 2 books are not part of Summerween at all. I just kind of just like was like, all right, I guess I'm done. And the first one that I read was The Law of Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This one I ended up listening to through Libby. And okay, so I knew what to expect going into this, that it was a Kylo Ren Rey fan fiction of sorts, that Ali Hazelwood has a type when it comes to men, that yes, he is huge, I get it, like not only just huge, but like has big hands, has huge shoulders, he's a mountain, I get it. I don't know, like I was waiting for the hype to die down for this and like then start listening, and then like got into it. It took a while, like because I think this was a book on the month pick for 2021. I did not like this. I gave this 2 stars, 1.5 star. Because it wasn't even the Kylo Ren Rey thing. I was expecting that. I was hoping for that. I like the two. But what bugged me about this was the main character, Olive. So in this book, we are following Olive, who is a PhD student who is trying to convince her best friend that she is over her ex, so that her best friend and her ex will get together. To prove that, she ends up kissing the first person that she ends up seeing in the hallway, who happens to be a professor and a well-known ass, Adam. They end up going to a fake dating relationship because Olive wants to keep up the appearance that she's over her ex. Adam needs the fake dating relationship because of reasons. I won't give it away. If you have yet to read this book, yeah, things ensue. At first I enjoyed it because it was kind of self-aware in terms of Olive kind of pointing out, going, no, okay, so like these are the rules because this was what happens during a fake dating rom-com. And Adam's just kind of going, what? And so it's that in itself was a little funny. But as the book went on, Olive just kept lying. Olive just kept miscommunicating. Olive just kept not communicating. And the whole time was saying, this is not me. I don't normally do this. This is not who I am. But because I haven't seen anything to the contrary, I'm just like, no, it is. This is all I've known you to be. So that bugs the hell out of me because those are 3 tropes that I have an issue with. It's the fact that she keeps saying, I'm not like this. And it's like, but you are. This is all we've known you to be. I think I ended up writing something in my Goodreads about this. Hold on just a sec. Let's see. So this is my review on Goodreads. I had a hard time with this book and on several occasions nearly DNF'd. I enjoyed the overall messages, Title IX, women in STEM, etc., but was not on board with how everything was based on purposeful miscommunication and presumptions. There were implications that Olive was different in that she didn't second guess herself at work, nor was she typically weepy, and she never lied. The second guessing and the being weepy are all perfectly fine and valid to be. I found all of it fairly melodramatic and nearly insufferable. The fact she kept mentioning she never used to be this way without giving examples or a particular reason on why just hammered those feelings in, because that's all Olive did was second guess herself and lie and make excuses for those lies throughout this whole book. Yes, people can feel those feelings without having a particular reason or event that caused it. It could have been Olive going through grad school. With either cause, I wanted some kind of exploration, soul searching, therapy, etc. Because as it was very unsatisfactory and gave me the message that mental health and questionable actions aren't worth exploring or looking into. Even if she explored it a bit further with her friends, I would have liked this book a bit more. Note, the weepiness was slightly explained having to do with a death of a parent, and it was still very much grief and loss, and later on because of emotional realizations with Adam, but the fact it was mentioned that this is my new state, it was never new. You just allowed yourself to stop hiding it. I gave this 2 stars. It's more of a 1.5 in after talking about it. I will be getting rid of this book. And then my last book that I ended the month with was The Honeymoon Crashers by Christina Lauren. This was an ALC from Libro, so thank you so much to them. I do have an affiliate link down below if you ever want to check them out. They're essentially like Audible, but the money doesn't go towards Amazon. It actually goes towards small bookshops, which is really cool. Honeymoon Crashers by Christina Lauren. This is essentially a novella sequel to The Unhoneymooners, which I didn't know going in, but quickly soon found out because it kind of just briefly explains the events that led up to The Honeymoon Crashers and essentially The Unhoneymooners, which I would suggest you read before reading The Unhoneymoon or The Honeymoon Crashers. So basically in the first one we are following, I believe, Olivia. The first one, we follow Olivia, who is the maid of honor for her sister's wedding, and she doesn't want to have to spend any more time than she has to with the best man, who they've always kind of had a tiff with. However, at her sister's wedding, people end up getting food poisoning, including the bride and groom, and so they send Olivia and the best man on their honeymoon because they're non-refundable tickets, and if anyone were to enjoy it, it might as well be them, the 2 people that did not get food poisoning. It's a hate to love relationship. Things ensue. So the Honeymoon Crashers were following Olivia's sister Amy after the events that took place in Unhoneymooners, and basically Amy is planning her sister's wedding and her sister and her fiance end up kind of forcing upon them, Olivia's fiance's best friend and best man, to help her plan. And then it's another hate to love relationship. That happens really quickly, but it's pretty insta-lovey, but the banter is pretty good. The love interest is hilarious in my opinion and very suave and romantic. I like him. So I thought it was a quick, fun read. Highly recommend. If there was a physical copy, I'd be getting it, but I think this is an audio original, and it's full cast. Or I don't know if it's full cast, but there's multiple narrators. I don't know what the difference is when it's like multiple narrators versus full cast, but it was really fun. So that was the books that I read for the month of July. If you made it this far, let's go ahead and let's put it some kind of like vacation emoji, an umbrella, a drink, something, because I'm not ready for school to start yet. I'm just not ready for it. Also, I want to apologize for the sound quality of this video. In my last video, that was not the vlog. I mentioned that I was testing out a new mic, or new to me mic. It was a mic that I had checked out through the library that I work at. I don't have that mic today. I didn't think I would be able to film. I'm filming today, the day I'm going on an airplane to a conference, and I'm actually waiting for laundry to get cleared up real quick. So I decided to film this real quick because it is already late. So yeah. So I don't have the mic with me ultimately, so my audio might suck right now, and I apologize. Thank you for bearing with me. Otherwise, like this video. Thank you for watching it all the way through. Subscribe if you have yet to do so, and I hope that you were in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading. I will see you in another video very soon. Shoo.